In the following video, I'm going to take a look at a couple different ways that you can do masking in AfterFX. I have three photos here. One is a very simple present, and this is an excellent way to show my masking. I'm going to go ahead and put a solid background color there, and then add my photo. Now my photo right now is a little bit larger, so I might scale it down so it actually fits, so I can actually see it on screen there. Now in order to add a mask to this particular object, what we need to do is choose the pen tool. Now we have a couple different ways that we can do this. We can just click on the object itself and start adding the mask, or we can actually double click on the object and go inside of it so that we have a little bit larger view of just that object alone and just its mask. And now what we can do is we can either add to that mask or of course start drawing a new mask at this point. If you wanted to add to the mask, what you can do is make sure you start it on one side. There we go. And now I can click on that one side and continue. There we go. And so I'm going to move around my object and create a mask that's fairly accurate, although I'm not going to take the time to make this really perfect. Sometimes you have to zoom out, sometimes you want to zoom in. And eventually you can get all the way around your object and make a very form-fitting mask, which is the way that the professionals do it by using the pen tool. So I'm getting close, and as soon as I get to the end, you'll see that that particular object will actually show that the mask has been applied. So this is how we know that that mask is right. Now notice that I can still see that mask when the layer is not selected, or if I unselect that particular layer, the masking still shows, and the reason why is because I am not on the composition. And this is one of the things that gets people really confused in AfterFX. Because I double-clicked, I'm actually on this particular layer only, and the composition window is on the left. So I need to close that item, and then you'll see the item that I have here actually on the composition itself. Now another thing which can be a little bit of a pain is the fact that anytime you have that layer selected, you'll see the effect, you'll actually see the lines of the mask. So it looks very similar to the other one. But if you unselect the layer, then you'll see that the results of that mask will show. Well, you can actually hide that for the layer itself by going up to the layer or composition options, going to view options, and turning off masks. And even when you have the layer selected, it will not show those masks, which can actually be very useful at times. Anyway, let's go ahead and apply a sort of effect such as a drop shadow. This is under perspective, drop shadow. And this will show the effect of that drop shadow of that particular masking really well. So we can see that that actually is there. Now, this is a very effective way of masking individual objects, but it's not very effective when you want to do animation. So I'm going to turn off this layer and show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to bring in a picture of a cow. And this time with this cow, I'd really like to have the cow move across and reveal him coming into a box. So, well, I think maybe what I should do is create a mask. So I'll click and drag, and I can create a mask for this object, which works just great. Now the problem is, anytime that you want to do position, however, what it does is it moves both the mask and the object at the same time. So what you would have to do is you would have to actually move the mask and the object at the same time in opposite directions at the perfect rate so that you did not see the mask moving. And that is very difficult to do. Now what you can do, however, is let's say that you wanted to have the mask kind of reveal him standing where he is. So what we could do is we could just move the mask by clicking on M with that layer, click on the mask, and I'm going to actually do this animation backwards. So I'm going to go to 5 seconds, create another keyframe, and by creating another keyframe, I'm adding a keyframe at that current time. what I can do is go back to the beginning keyframe, and I'm going to move my object. And the way you can do this is if you select all, if you double click on that particular footage item, you can get into it, and you can select all the keyframes and do Control T, which is transform. And what this will allow me to do is just go ahead and move those keyframes straight up. Now you'll see that it's animating the mask, and it's not animating the layer itself. And that's kind of cool when you just want a mask to reveal something. But what if you want the mask to stay in the same exact spot, and you would rather have the object move? Well, then what we need to do is we need to do this a completely different method. And that method is going to be called track matting. Now I actually have track matting turned on, but here's my object, and I'm going to make him a little bit smaller, and I'm going to scale him up over time. So I'll create a keyframe for him to scale, about 5 seconds long. And I might actually have to do a position too, because anytime you do position and scale, they kind of go together, because I want him to kind of stay in the same place. So there we go. I've got a little zoom of the frog, but I'd like to have him in a mask now. So what we do is we create a new object on top. And we can either add a mask to this object, such as an elliptical mask. And here's a trick too. If you double click on a mask, you'll see what it will do is it will actually apply that mask to the entire object. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and draw it right in the center here. And I might draw it as an oval. And one of the other things you can do with masks, if you haven't tried, is you can feather masks. So I'm going to show my mask settings. And you'll see that I have mask feather here. And I could feather that mask, which is kind of nice. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my other expand, collapse, transfer control panels, which are right here. And with the layer, which is the original animated layer, you'll see it now has this track mat where it says none. If you click on track mat and you use an alpha mat for the layer which is above, which is what it always does, then what it will do is it will use the alpha settings of that layer in order to show a mask for that bottom layer. And this is really effective. And the cool thing about this is that you could have any other object in the background, and if I put this underneath the pale solid, you'll see that that indeed is being masked inside this original object here. So that's a great way of doing masking in AfterFX. There are a couple other things that you can do. I'll point out that you can actually do some pretty neat things when you use color channels. So if I go ahead and bring this other mask here, I'm going to throw the other object above it, and this time I'm going to do a luma mat and hide the layer above. And you'll see that it can do some interesting things there with that luma mat. When you have a luma mat, sometimes what you'd want to do is have a black and white object like this. And if you have a black and white object, and you'll see that kind of luma effect again. So you can do some really neat things with the different track matting options: luma, luma inverted, alpha, and the alpha mat. And the alpha mat is not going to work because there is no alpha. With this we have a black and white image, and that's why it's showing what we have here. Whereas with the other one, I'll put it the curl above, and I will change this to alpha mat. And you'll see that hopefully we will get that back here in a second. How about if I put pale orange solid above? Not that object. There was our original mask. So once again, a couple different ways that you can do masking. You just want to be aware of when you want the animation to be on the layer itself or you want it to be on the mask. And you want to look at using track mat as much as possible because it is more flexible and it's very easy to throw in different objects to try for that masking procedure. And that's it.